Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're undertaking a really focused mission. It's a microscopic deep dive looking at integrity, faithfulness, all through the lens of, well, just one single ancient observation. Our goal is really to get past the standard translations you might see, to really try and uncover the precise, almost surgical meaning the author intended. So the core statement we're analyzing is quite powerful. In, a common English version, it goes something like this. Most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find.
Right. And that verse, it's basically a condensed piece of, let's say, realistic psychology, all packed into one sentence. When you really understand the specific Hebrew words the author chose, it stops being just a general proverb. It becomes this quite cynical but deeply insightful commentary on the difference between, well, performance and actual character.
Performance and character, I like that.
Yeah, the author uses this really brilliant rhetorical structure. It sets up this massive contrast, between the self-advertisement, all the noise, and then true, enduring reliability, the quiet substance. We're basically comparing the person who says they're trustworthy versus the person who actually is.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this then. The text starts by setting a kind of baseline for human nature.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly flattering, is it? It says most men.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's zero in on that opening phrase right away.
Off it.
Rav Adam. The author chose the word rav, which means many or most, very deliberately. This isn't just a critique of a few bad apples. It establishes this behavior as the general rule, the tendency.
Oh, okay.
It's framed as an observation of the majority, not some rare exception.
So the author is basically saying, hey, look around. This is like the common reality you'll see.
Yeah.
The implication of choosing most is pretty critical then, isn't it? It immediately suggests that anything different is, by definition, rare.
It absolutely sets that stage. If the majority of the Rav are behaving this way, then you, the reader, immediately know the person described in the second half. They must be the statistical outlier.
Makes sense.
And using Adam, which refers to general humanity, common people, it just confirms we're talking broad strokes here, not specific leaders or anything, just the average person. It paints the widest possible picture of human behavior.
Okay, so if that's the general state, most people, here's where the action comes in. They don't just, sit around thinking they're good. They proclaim it. They're loud about it. Let's dig into that specific verb.
Right, the verb is yikra. Now, its basic meaning is to call out, to declare, maybe even to summon.
Yeah.
The choice of yikra over, say, a word that just means speaking, well, that seems quite intentional. It really emphasizes the act of public assertion.
Okay.
It's not some quiet chat about their good intentions. It's an announcement. It really highlights that self-assertion.
I think this is where the text just leaps across time and feels so relevant today. If yikra implies making an announcement, calling attention, this isn't just boasting to a buddy. This feels like the ancient version of, I don't know, marketing yourself, putting out a press release, or even, modern day virtue signaling on social media or something.
That analogy is pretty spot on, actually. The author is describing people who are actively invested in their own, let's call it, PR campaign. They want other people to know, and they're using loud language, yikra, to make sure it happens. It's behavior designed for maximum visibility, not necessarily maximum substance or impact.
Mm-hmm. And what exactly are they selling in this PR campaign? They're proclaiming his own goodness. A word, goodness, hasdo. That needs a closer look, right? Why pick that specific, quite heavy word?
This is where the genius and maybe the cynicism of the verse really work together. Eased isn't a lightweight term. As you know, its core meaning relates to covenant loyalty. Or you could say contractual faithfulness, maybe steadfast kindness. It's a foundational concept for honorable behavior within a relationship or a community. It carries huge moral weight.
Okay, yeah, it's a big deal word.
It is, but the irony kicks in when the author attaches the possessive suffix his to it, making it his though, his own eased. So people are trying to claim this weighty, honorable term, this idea of dependable, contractual loyalty, to describe their own, perhaps easily advertised, maybe temporary good deeds. It's like they're trying to borrow moral authority from the word itself.
Wow.
They're proclaiming a virtue that, the text implies, might not actually be backed up by sustained real action.
So the author is kind of subtly criticizing this practice of self-beautification, making yourself look good by wrapping yourself in the language of the highest virtues available. You're basically saying the loudest virtue often tries to hijack the language of real, enduring loyalty, but it's fundamentally self-serving at its core.
That's exactly it. The very moment you are the one loudly declaring your own east, you've made it self-referential. And the author strongly implies that this substance is probably, well, lacking. It's the public declaration itself that immediately makes you question the reality behind it. And this perfectly sets up the logical need for the second half of the verse.
Right, that's the pivot. So we have the loud majority using this really respected term for their own self-promotion. How does the second half flip the script so dramatically?
The transition is quite abrupt and powerful. It uses the conjunction verash, which means but a person or and a man. It immediately shifts us away from the statistical majority, the Rav Adam, to the individual. The author moves us from the general rule of loud self-promotion to the silent, hard-to-find exception.
Okay, the exception. And that exception is defined by this core term for true character, immunim, the faithful man. When we break this word down, immunim, how does it inherently contrast with the east we just discussed?
Well, that's fascinating here is the root of immunim. It comes from a root that means to make certain, to support, or to be firm, like the word amen, actually. So this isn't primarily about kindness or loyalty in a specific moment, which aist sometimes can imply. Immunim suggests something much deeper. It speaks to sustained reliability, firmness.
Ah, okay, stability.
Stability, duration, a foundational quality. If enim can sometimes be about the visible act of loyalty, which, as we saw, can be shouted out, eminim is about the fundamental state of being reliable, fixed, certain. Think of it maybe like a building's foundation versus, I don't know, the paint job.
Good analogy.
Eminim suggests that the character itself is firm and doesn't waver, whether anyone's looking or shouting about it or not. It's the genuine article the text implies, precisely because it endures quietly.
So we've got this clear contrast. The self-promoter selling their maybe fleeting est versus the truly reliable individual who embodies immunim substance and duration. Now, if this immunim person isn't out there proclaiming their virtue, how does the author emphasize that finding them is inherently really difficult?
He closes the verse with a brilliantly effective rhetorical device. Who can find?
Okay, let's break down that phrase, mi yimsa. Why is the question mark itself the main point?
Well, the question word me, who, isn't expecting you to actually name someone. It's not an information question. It's a powerful rhetorical question. It's a literary technique used to forcefully suggest the answer is quite obvious, hardly anyone. Or maybe it's exceedingly difficult to find such a person. The author is sort of lamenting the scarcity of this kind of sustained, quiet, reliable character.
Right, it's expressing rarity.
Exactly. And furthermore, the verb used, yimpsa, which means to find or even to search out, reinforces this difficulty. Remember, the truly faithful person isn't obvious. They aren't self-advertising. They aren't standing on the corner with a sign proclaiming their immunim.
Right.
So the use of this verb yimpsa implies that the person of immunim is actually an object of a quest. You have to actively seek them out. You have to look for them, often beneath all the noise, precisely because they are rare and quiet.
So the structure of the whole verse is this complete inversion of what you might initially expect. The people who are easiest to find, the loudest ones, are the ones shouting about their virtue, which the text immediately casts doubt upon. But the people who possess true integrity, immunimum, are quiet. They're scarce, and finding them requires real, genuine, investigative effort.
That's the profound insight you get when you really analyze the vocabulary choices, isn't it? The author is basically teaching us where to aim our trust filters. If you rely only on what is loudly proclaimed, that self-described east, you're probably going to be disappointed because the text suggests that trait might be temporary or self-serving.
Okay.
But if you seek out what is sustained and firm, the unionum, you will find true character, but likely only after a difficult search.
So the lesson here then isn't just about what other people are doing, but maybe also about what we should be doing as observers. We've established that this truly reliable person is presented as rare, needing to be actively sought out, looking past the merely visible and vocal. This deep dive into the language really shows us that true integrity seems to be defined by what sustains reliability over time, not what's just proclaimed loudly in the moment. And this brings us to an important final question for you, the listener. If this ancient text is telling us that finding true faithfulness, true immunim, requires active seeking, and that it's genuinely scarce in a world that's, frankly, full of self-advertisement, how does that reality maybe change the way you currently evaluate people, especially those who are highly visible, maybe very vocal about their own virtues? Are you perhaps stopping to admire the easily proclaimed eased, or are you maybe willing to invest the time and effort required to seek out the quiet, enduring reliability of true immunim? Something to think about.